What's going on, everybody? Brenden Schaeffer back here with you with another fantasy football mock draft as we continue to get set for the 2023 fantasy football season. Today, I'll be mock drafting for a 12-team PPR league from the 1.7 spot. If you're looking for a different draft position, hopefully by the end of August, I will have gone through the entire gambit, 1 through 12, on the 12-team PPR leagues. I've gotten some comments and messages about 16-team leagues, 14-team leagues. Let me know in the comments section below what league you would like me to draft for, the settings that your league has, and we'll be able to get through all of these videos as we go along here in the month of August, getting you set for the fantasy football season. Hit that subscribe button, hit like on this video, and again, drop your comment below with the type of content you would like to see next from the channel. Just getting this thing off the ground, and it's been really fun and successful so far to get a lot of views despite not a lot of subscribers. But if this content is up your alley, you're going to want to be here all fantasy football season as we really dive in. A big part of what I'll be doing after the mock draft season is helping everybody with their trades. I think trades are maybe the most underrated part of fantasy football that everybody likes doing, but does everybody know how to do them well? Year over year, I have found a lot of success with my strategies when it comes to trading, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that I draft in such a way that has allowed me to stay healthy for those first few weeks of the season, which then allows me to make more trades from a position of strength rather than a position of weakness. If that sounds interesting to you, again, hit that subscribe button. Brenden Schaeffer, Fantasy Football. The YouTube link is youtube.com/@bschaefferffb. Looking forward to putting out a lot of content this year. But today, let's go ahead and get started with this draft on Sleeper. Again, we're drafting from the 1.7 position. It's a 12-team PPR league. We've got it set up for a couple of wide receivers, a couple of flex spots, as you see there on your screen, 5 bench, not messing around with kickers or defense. The one thing I'll say about those spots is if you have kickers and defense in your league and you're drafting this week, mid-August, or even late August, don't draft them, especially if you're playing on Sleeper. Yahoo, I know, is the same way. They do not force you to draft every position in your lineup. There is no reason to have a kicker or a defense on your team until maybe that Saturday night before the Sunday of week 1. Make sure you're grabbing some guys on the end of your bench that, hey, if an injury situation should arise, maybe you're the one that can take advantage of it by stashing some players late. Don't worry about those meaningless positions until you absolutely have to. But that's my quick PSA. Let's go ahead and get into this draft here. I've done Hero RB. I've done Zero RB videos on this channel. Go back to my catalog if you haven't seen those already. Today, I decided with this drafting from right in the middle of the round, I'm not going to go with any specific strategy. I'm going to let the draft come to me and see where that takes us. It is a PPR league, so I do tend to prioritize wide receivers because those are the guys that tend to stay healthier as the season goes along, whereas running backs, it just seems like they drop in droves. But looking at this list of wide receivers here, Cooper Kupp is the most attractive name to me, and there he is a guy that is kind of injury-prone, or at least has a recent history of dealing with injuries. If Travis Kelce were still available at this point in the round, I'm probably strongly considering that as well. Bijan Robinson is interesting to me here too, but I tend to go wide receiver first. My Hero RB draft was a Bijan draft, so check out that video if you're interested. But I'm going to go Cooper Kupp here. I think I've got him well above Stephon Diggs with some of the strange things going on with him in Buffalo. I think he'll have a great season, but the upside for Cooper Kupp, I'm believing if he's got a healthy Matt Stafford, I should say, that Kupp can still have another elite season in him despite being over the hill, as it were, at age 30. I like CeeDee Lamb a lot. He goes to Team 11. A.J. Brown is a big target, obviously, in that Eagles offense. Not as high on Devontae Adams this year. I'll be curious to see where he continues to fall in drafts. And, oh, my goodness, we got very close to having an ideal situation with one of our main targets this year, Amon-Ra St. Brown, going one pick before us in round 2. That's okay, though. We're happy with the wide receivers that have fallen. Garrett Wilson seems to be developing a nice rapport with Aaron Rodgers, so we're going to keep an eye on him, as well as Chris Olave, who I think could be a sneaky option as that kind of second-year breakout. Looked like a stud as a rookie out of Ohio State, as was his Ohio State teammate Garrett Wilson. But I'm interested in the quarterback situation for the Saints because I think Derek Carr, kind of sneaky with what he can do with the deep ball, so Olave could have a very nice rapport with him. But as of right now, we're looking Garrett Wilson. But can we find a running back that would knock us off of that perch? Too early to go quarterback in our estimation. It's a little too early in that second round as well to consider Mark Andrews, though I do like him as kind of a discount Travis Kelce. This year, if you can get Andrews in the late second to early third, I have been advocating for people to do exactly that. At the running back spot, we don't really love the value here. Jonathan Taylor could end up being an absolute boon to people who take the plunge in round 2. But for me, too much strangeness going on in Indianapolis with his situation. Now I believe he, as of this recording, is away from the team. It is an excused absence, but they're not saying, well, now it's injury related. He had been rehabbing the ankle. They had reported back issues for him. A lot of kind of back and forth going on throughout the media as it pertains to Jonathan Taylor. I just don't want to stay in those situations if I don't have to, right? If I can go for an upside guy like a Garrett Wilson, minimal risk in the second round with all the upside in the world attached to Aaron Rodgers, even without a great quarterback last year, Garrett Wilson showed what he was all about. So I think I'm taking the wide receiver over the weird Taylor situation, over banking on Josh Jacobs to do it again. I do like Tony Pollard, but for me, starting out with 2 stud, volume-based wide receivers like Kupp and Garrett Wilson feels really good from the middle of the round. So let's see the way the rest of this round unfolds. Mark Andrews does go with the 3-1. Again, I think that's tremendous value. Look at what Team 1 has done here with Justin Jefferson, Chris Olave, who we just talked up a lot, and Mark Andrews. If I were sitting there in that number 1 draft position, watching Jacobs, Pollard, and Taylor fly off the board, and Olave fall to me as an alpha dog wide receiver 1 on his offense, with Mark Andrews to be able to stack at tight end, that is a dream for PPR. And he's got Justin Jefferson to start things off as well. We're going to keep an eye on how that Team 1 unfolds. It's really easy to draft from the 1-1 this year, folks. And I think it's just probably one of those sayings that stands to reason that it would be that way every year. But I just feel like the value is tremendous. You're getting the 25th best player, purportedly, in Mark Andrews right here as the number 3 on your team. Whereas some of these other rosters, they just don't have that level of depth. Like, I love Jalen Hurts. I think he's fantastic. But if you're sitting here, Eckler, Hurts, Higgins, it just doesn't hit the same way as what Team 1 was able to do. Of course, we're drafting here from the middle of the round. Breece Hall went right before us at 3.6. That's an interesting draft capital to watch after the Jets have signed Dalvin Cook. My quick take on Breece Hall, I'm not that worried about the Dalvin Cook signing. It's a little more concerning than the signing for Ramondre Stevenson in the Patriots organization. I don't think Zeke has much left in him. And so I think that's more of a minor deal. The Dalvin Cook deal, a little bigger for a guy like Breece Hall, but I think by the time you get to your fantasy playoffs, Breece Hall is going to be that guy in that offense. It's a 1-year deal for Dalvin Cook. It's insurance policy against Breece maybe having a slow start like we saw for J.K. Dobbins off of his injury last season for the Ravens. I think Breece Hall is still a great get. I don't really think I'm going to be too interested, though, until I see him maybe fall into the 4th round where he suddenly becomes a value rather than the overdrafted player that he had been before the Dalvin signing. Spent a lot of time here talking, not a lot of time looking, so let's make a quick decision here under the gun. I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs. I think it's nice to get a little bit of balance here. Jahmyr Gibbs is upside offensively in that offense that I think for the Lions is going to be very passing based, and I like that in a PPR league. If I've got a running back that I don't care if he's a starter, whether it's Montgomery or Gibbs, it doesn't really make a difference to me. What I'm looking for is pass catching opportunities. I think Jahmyr Gibbs demonstrated at Alabama that he can catch the ball out of the backfield, even if he's only getting half the snaps or 40% of the RB snaps, which I don't think is going to be the case. I bet the Lions will use Gibbs and Monty on the field at the same time. But even if he were getting that sort of timeshare, I trust that Gibbs is going to be explosive enough to do some real damage with those opportunities. So if I'm looking at Gibbs versus the guys that went right behind him in Najee Harris and Joe Mixon, it is not even remotely a choice. I'm in love with Jahmyr Gibbs at that spot. Middle of the 3rd, especially if I've stacked 2 PPR really talented receivers like Kupp and Garrett Wilson. I'm feeling good about where I stand at that point. What are we noting about this draft so far, though? It's interesting to see the way a lot of quarterbacks have fallen off the board as I accidentally clicked Kupp. I just wanted to look at his face, apparently. That's no problem at all. Not too worried, by the way, about his preseason injury. There is some concern if you look at Matthew Stafford maybe not being able to get through the season as a possibility that Cooper Kupp takes a dive. But, man, Cooper Kupp has been really good to me in the past. I even had a custom T-shirt made up. The best part of waking up, starting Cooper Kupp. And I would love the chance to do it again in fantasy this season. You never know how many more years you'll get to start your faves. And so I can be sentimental sometimes in draft season. Probably not a great thing to admit on a video like this, but hey, I'm honest with you guys. So hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this type of candid content when it comes to fantasy football drafting. But how about Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow already going off the board? I feel like Burrow at 4-4 is a little early with his injury situation. but hopefully he's ready for week 1. We do have one running back now, so we feel a little better about being able to dive back into the wide receiver well. Guys like DJ Moore, Christian Watson, and even Brenden Ayuk are pretty attractive to us right here. We're going to go with DJ Moore. Unfortunately, cannot stack him with Justin Fields. I think to be able to pull that stack off, you've got to be here in that kind of 3.11 and 4.2 range. A little bit closer to the turn to make that happen. But we like DJ Moore as the sort of A.J. Brown to Justin Fields this year. And what I mean by that is what A.J. Brown provided to Jalen Hurts. I think DJ Moore, as a talented wide receiver who has just simply never played with a very good quarterback, but has put up numbers nevertheless, I think he can be that for Justin Fields as his wide receiver 1 in Chicago. Maybe a little concerned that Fields does too much running, but I think they are going to make a concerted effort in Chicago to get him throwing the ball downfield a little bit more, and maybe that touchdown regression can finally come for DJ Moore. Fantasy players have been waiting for it for years. Perhaps this is the year that we finally see it come to fruition. Let's take a look, though, at the players that went off the board after our DJ Moore pick. We were pretty content to go wide receiver there. Like I said, I like to be robust, and I've only got wide receiver 1s right now. Moore's going to be the top dog in Chicago. Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles, and Garrett Wilson certainly is going to be the Jets wide receiver 1. So we like the volume we're getting there. We've got a good mixture of offenses that we want a piece of. The Jets, obviously, there are reasons to be excited there with Aaron Rodgers coming into town. I think the Lions are going to be sneaky this year. The Rams may be a little bit slept on, but it's hard to argue against Cooper Kupp. And then that Chicago offense that we've talked about so far. We're going to have to look at one more wide receiver before we get through it, but I like some of these guys in this, down to this Tyler Lockett range. Probably not Pittman. Are any of those guys going to come back to us in the middle of the 6th round would be the question. This is the zone where I like to pick receivers because Madison, Pierce, Sanders, not on my list at all when it comes to running backs. I'd rather wait around and get guys in this kind of Kamara, maybe Cam Akers tier, but even further down, you're seeing guys like Javonte Williams and James Cook that if you watch my videos, you see me pick up a lot of those types of guys. We are at a spot that in this draft, though, where Trevor Lawrence, I think, is the last of a tier at quarterback. And I'm not overly enthused with what I'm seeing at RB and wide receiver here.
Come on.
All right, sorry about that, Sleeper. I misclicked. We're going to take Trevor Lawrence, though. This is something that I've not done in very many drafts at all, but I'm kind of enthused by it, and I want to see if it burns me. Ayuk is one that hurts a little bit. That one's painful because I do think I have Ayuk ranked above Tyler Lockett. Ayuk could really have a breakout this year. I'd like to click on it, but Sleepers, there we go. Show the player card. I want to kind of see, because Ayuk really kind of upped his consistency last year, finishing with 227 PPR points. Could even take another step forward this season. I like the player a lot. We didn't get a chance to have him. They draft 3 tight ends, though. That's kind of what we were looking for. We were thinking some wide receivers would fall as a result of this run on tight ends. And again, could we get burned by an RB run before our next pick? Maybe. But I'm looking at the ADP, and I think we're going to play that game at RB one more time. Cam Akers is fine, but we've already got a Ram. I don't want to be too invested in that offense because there is some risk baked in when you consider the Matt Stafford injuries of last year. I don't love going for older players. You're generally going to see my rosters trend young outside of this Cooper Kupp pick. You can look at Garrett Wilson, 2nd year, Gibbs, 1st year. DJ Moore has been around the block a little bit, but we still like his age at like 25, 26. Trevor Lawrence, younger quarterback, the last of a tier. You're not going to see a quarterback go off the board probably until the 7th round is my guess. We'll see if that plays out. But James Conner, he's going to have all the volume in a bad offense. I don't really want to stake myself to that if I don't have to. Dalvin Cook is not the top running back on his team necessarily. So again, I think we can play the ADP game, hoping that some of the targets we do have, we'll take a Pacheco, but Javonte Williams, generally I would like David Montgomery, but we did take his backfield mate in Gibbs, so we'll hold off on that. But James Cook is intriguing as well, and even from a PPR standpoint, Antonio Gibson. So there's enough there that we feel like we can take the plunge on Tyler Lockett, who for me is the last wide receiver of a tier. Let's end up seeing if we're right about that. Well, Team 6 decided JSN. They might have preferred JSN to Lockett. I have to really think about that a little bit harder. I have loved Tyler Lockett throughout his career, but will Smith and Jigba end up causing some issues for his value this season? There's some consideration there. We get burned a little bit on the ADP game, didn't we? Javonte Williams going one spot before us. And here's my advice. If you are seeing Javonte Williams the way that I am as just a screaming value in fantasy drafts, probably just take him around early. to make sure you get him on your team. That's maybe what I should have done there. But like I said, I just wasn't as enthused by this level of wide receiver that remains. George Pickens, I think, is a fantastic talent, but does Kenny Pickett get the most out of him this year? I'm looking for guys that I can count on to be my starting wide receivers in these flex spots. I just like Tyler Lockett enough that I wanted to make that play. I thought I would get Javonte here in the 7th, but it's a lesson to be learned. If you've got your eye on a player and you go, he may not make it back to me, you might just have to take him around early, because the way my team would set up with Gibbs and Javonte at running back, I think would be really nice. Yes, is there risk in Javonte? Of course there is. He's coming off of an ACL. But you know what? So is Breece Hall, and he also just had Dalvin Cook signed to his team, and yet Breece Hall is still going in the middle of the 3rd. I just cannot understand Javonte Williams going 4 rounds later when there have only been positive reports about the recovery process for Javonte Williams, and he's supposed to play in the preseason and all of this stuff. Javonte Williams, to me, I need to make a mental note to myself in drafts. Like if I'm in the middle of the 6th and he hasn't been taken, I just need to pull the trigger, no questions asked, especially if I am running back needy at that point. He's a great value. I like Pickens. I like Addison. They're Jahan Dotson. I love guys in this realm. Quentin Johnston, too, is another example where I think they're going to be screaming values in drafts. Rookies, man, go for rookies when you're getting toward the end of your bench, or I should say the end of your starting lineup and starting to fill out that bench. It makes a lot of sense to go rookies. I'm not even going to spend time on tight end here. I'm going to grab James Cook before the clock runs out. Look, again, young running back. He's in his 2nd year. He's in an an already brilliant offense. Why wouldn't we want a piece of James Cook? People might say, oh, well, he's not the bell cow. Guys, we're getting him in the middle of the 7th round on the most explosive offense in football. Maybe. There are others that could be trying to vie for that title. The Chiefs, the Chargers could be very good this year. But the Bills are going to be what the Bills are going to be, and we're getting their running back that I think they're the highest on. So that matters. And I love James Cook in the 7th. If I could have a running back core of Javonte in the 6th, James Cook in the 7th, I don't think that's the end of the world if you went more for like a 0 RB build. We did draft Trevor Lawrence. We might want to think about some stacking tendencies as it pertains to Trevor Lawrence, but we've kind of already missed the boat, haven't we, on the tight end there? How long ago was he drafted? Where the hell is Evan Ingram? Oh, he just got picked one before us. Okay. So, that thought is out the window a little bit. I wonder if there are any other Jacksonville receivers that we want to keep an eye on. As I'm scrolling trying to find them and failing, so I'm kind of giving up on that. There are some guys in this tier that I do like at wide receiver. I know we've already got 4 of them, but when we're filling out that bench, we want to shoot for upside. Quentin Johnston is certainly a consideration. He is risen in the sleeper ADP. I like Gabe Davis a lot. We do have a little bit of skin in the game already with the Buffalo Bills. I like Gabe Davis. I like Zay Flowers, though, too, man. Who's to say he can't be the wide receiver 1 in Baltimore? ADP's got him right above Odell Beckham. I love Zay Flowers. He might follow us with the ADP game to the next round, which tells us that maybe we want to make sure to get a running back here. Charbonnet is a guy that I've been getting a lot of. Devon A-Chain, really, look at him, aggressively surging up the ADP ranks. We're wanting some Charbonnet, some A-Chain. We like Khalil Herbert as well. We like Quentin Johnston. I've been finding myself with this build. We're going to take QJ here, and I'll explain why, as Antonio Gibson goes right behind us. That might have been the smart pick if I needed an RB2. Because I've already filled that out with James Cook, I don't really need an RB2. So I'm not looking for Antonio Gibson off my bench. I'm looking for upside off my bench with the running backs I select. I want guys that could turn into superstars. Charbonnet with an injury, potentially to Kenneth Walker. He's already been banged up a little bit in preseason. Charbonnet instantly becomes that top 6 or 8 RB for me because that Seattle team wants to run. Gibson, if there was an injury to Brian Robinson ahead of him, does it change his trajectory a ton? Yeah, I don't know. They probably end up finding somebody else for early downs, so it doesn't. The upside is for a guy like Charbonnet rather than Gibson. So if I needed an RB2 that can get me 10 points a week in PPR, it's probably Gibson. But knowing that that's not the build that I currently have laid out, I've already got 2 running backs that I'm going to plug in. I'm looking for upside. And so it's guys like Charbonnet. It's guys like Devon A-Chain. And yeah, you get a little lower. I like a Tank Bigsby. Didn't need to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and mark him. Kendre Miller, Roschon Johnson. Seen some good reports out about Roschon Johnson. I want to mark him for now, too, to kind of keep him in mind. This is a good strategy on Sleeper. You can just set your queue, make sure that you're paying attention to the order, because if I run out of time here, it'll draft somebody auto for me, which we don't necessarily want. All right. Zay Flowers is interesting. We missed out on Gabe Davis. We missed out on, well, we did get Quentin Johnson. Shoot, I'm the one that picked him. I should know. Zay Flowers, though, man, that's the thing. I'm just, I have a lot of guys that I like, and it could get me into trouble at times because I scroll down. I know we took, we didn't take Javonte in this draft. Cortland Sutton is interesting. Jamison Williams he's suspended and he got injured today, but he's interesting. Sky Moore for the Chiefs. We want to keep an eye on him as well. I think we need to take the running back. We're going to take Charbs. PPR, he's going to be their pass-catching running back, and he's going to get the whole pie if something should happen to Kenneth Walker. They'll have somebody else that mixes in. But Charbonnet, I feel very good about him being on my bench. 2 rookies on the bench so far. A lot of my drafts do end up going very similarly. I try to give you some different takes where I can, but I'm also trying to hone my own skill set when it comes to the draft season. Don't have a tight end yet. This might be where I want to make sure to land a Dalton Kincaid. I like Laporta later. Dawson Knox, honestly, the other tight end in Buffalo. But, man, the reports coming out about Dalton Kincaid, who could potentially be a very versatile weapon in the pass-catching game. It's exciting. But Devon Achane's still here as well. Do we think we could win the ADP game when it comes to Kincaid? Nope. He's right at the top of the list. So we got to make a choice here. You want your 4th running back, or would you like to take a shot on a rookie tight end? There's so much competition for targets in Buffalo. Achane could very well be the RB1. I get it. They've got Jeff Wilson. They've got Raheem Mostert still in Miami. But if this guy's explosive and he just kind of takes the job and runs with it, Mike McDaniel's just going to feed him. And we feel very good about our depth right now at wide receiver, because even if you weren't big on the Lockett pick, and I know a lot of people maybe aren't, they might be on the JSN side of that ledger, having a guy like Quentin Johnson with upside off your bench, let's say Lockett starts slow or just isn't consistent enough, but you're seeing QJ pop off. Okay, you put QJ in your lineup. It's easy. That's definitely got to be a consideration. But I don't know if this is very identical to previous drafts I've done. Maybe it's too similar, and people would say, you got to mix it up a little bit. But Devon Achane is going to be my pick here. I know I'm going to lose Dalton Kincaid as a result. There he goes, 10.9. He feels like wonderful value at that spot. But I don't really have to worry about running back again, is kind of the way I look at it. Charbonnet and Achane off my bench. I've got 2 bench spots to play with. I do still need a tight end. But I've got 3 rookie running backs and James Cook, who's a second-year guy. I think I've got guys that are going to be explosive offenses. Seattle, Miami, Detroit, Buffalo. I only need 2 of them per week because I'm robust at wide receiver. Do I want to get even more robust at wide receiver? Yeah, I would probably grab I would like to roster 6 of them. Is kind of where I'm at. And Sky Moore's staring me in the face right there, isn't he? We like Laporta. We like Dawson Knox. Honestly, we like Dulcich and Tyler Higbee too. There's enough tight end value here that I'm going to wait around on tight end. But when I think about Sky Moore, it's like, what am I missing? He's going to play the slot for the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is his quarterback. Their wide receiver 1 is supposedly like Kadarius Toney. He can't stay healthy. Rashee Rice, you see him a little bit below there as a rookie. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, yeah, he's not going to be a number 1. I know Kelsey's their top guy. But Sky Moore is going to get targets, man. I am convinced of it. I like a Tank Bixby. Roshan Johnson. We're going to keep Roshan in our back of our head maybe for a final round pick if he's still there. But we're taking Sky Moore. As our 6th wide receiver, you have a piece of that Chiefs offense and you don't need him to hit to have a successful fantasy season. But if he does, that's how you make trades. That's how you find yourself in really advantageous positions when it comes to the trade market. We did get sniped on Sam Laporta, but that's okay. We did get one piece of that Detroit offense with Jahmyr Gibbs. I guess we're going to take Dawson Knox here at tight end. Honestly, though, I could even go further down. Jake Ferguson, he's going to be the Dallas starter, is he not? Hayden Hurst could be a safety blanket for a rookie quarterback in Carolina. screw this. We are not taking our tight end just yet. We're going to wait and do that last. We're going to fill out the final spot on the bench with a running back. We don't need to. But look at wide receiver. Mingo, Jalen Hyatt, Nico Collins. Guys that kind of stand out to me. Tank Dell, I think, could be intriguing. Marvin Mims, if you're going to take that shot on the Denver offense. Josh Downs is pretty far down the list. But I think when it really comes down to it, I want another rookie running back. Tank Bigsby is a great choice, but I'm gonna take Roschon Johnson instead. I think either of them are great options. But Roschon Johnson was the backup to Bijan Robinson at Texas this past year. And I think because he was kind of living in Bijan's shadow, people don't realize how good of a player Roschon Johnson is. And it's a very tenuous situation in the Chicago backfield. We don't know who the starter is going to be. I think it's going to be Khalil Herbert. You see him going here in the 10th. Deontay Foreman, I don't even know where he went in this draft. Assuming he went at all, I'm not picking him anywhere. I don't tend to take guys whose skill set is run the football between the tackles but don't catch passes. That's not really my speed. So he's not going to be a threat to be on any of my rosters. I might just take Deuce Vaughn for the grins. There's a guy with some speed and some wiggle. But we do need a tight end, so we'll take one here. Don't have to. Like, honestly, if you're going to stream the tight end position, maybe I'll just do this for the sake of it. This guy just drafted tight end. This guy's got one. This guy's already got two. This guy's got one. Team 12 does not have a tight end. Let's go ahead and don't take one. Just because I want people to kind of get it into their mindset that you don't have to. There are no rules, especially when you're drafting on Sleeper. You may not like Deuce Vaughn. Kenny Gainwell is too low. Kenny Gainwell could get a decent chunk of that offense. Maybe that's who I take. I want Deuce Vaughn, but I'm going to take Kenneth Gainwell. Because what if we find out that he's the starter or something for the Eagles? Dawson Knox does go 12-12. Or what is that? Round 13, pick 12. So we didn't take a tight end. We did this just for the sake of kind of comparison to show people that you can do this. A lot of people probably already knew that, but I just want to drive the point home. Maybe Deuce Vaughn would have been a better example, but I think Kenny Gainwell is a perfect example to do this with. Let's say, well, Rashad Penny, they didn't give up a lot to get him. Let's say DeAndre Swift, they didn't give up a lot to get him. What if it's just the guy they trust the most is Kenny Gainwell, and he is the running back who sees the most touches in one of the most explosive offenses in the NFC, led by Jalen Hurts? You're going to want that guy on your fantasy roster, and even if I don't have room to do anything with him, if you don't think that Kenny Gainwell having a week one where he goes, 14 carries, 80 yards, a rushing touchdown, 2-minute drill, he catches 5 passes, we're talking, well over 20 PPR points. You don't think I could package Kenny Gainwell with, let's say, Sky Moore gets 7 targets in the first week for the Kansas City Chiefs and goes like 4 for 55. People go, oh my gosh, 7 targets from Mahomes? That could really turn into something. You don't think I can turn Sky Moore and Kenny Gainwell into an upgrade somewhere on my roster? Those are the kinds of things that I'm going to look for, and those are the kinds of things I'm going to try to walk people through. Legitimately, your league situation, whatever your team is, that's what we're going to talk about on this YouTube channel this season. Once we get through the mock draft session of it all, I'm going to just dive into more fantasy content. So if you enjoyed this video, if you like this type of content, subscribe to the channel, Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football, and heck, throw your comment out. What do you want to see from this channel? I'm going to be making daily videos the rest of August. That is the goal I'm setting for myself because each of the previous videos have done so well. People have had really great feedback. I'm building this channel from nothing. Get it on the ground floor. It's going to be a fun ride this fantasy season. But that's going to do it for this edition. I appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.